Alright guys, so let's get into kind of our chords part 2. I did a little bit of work on this, which I'm going to go over right now. It's just to save time, so you kind of don't see the 15 minutes of sketching I just did. I'll explain it as best I can, that way you don't have to kind of watch the boring parts here. So, from before, obviously, I was showing you the major chords and how to kind of do that, construct those, and have that option. But keep in mind, our track here is in E minor, remember, from our bass line. So, being that it's in E minor, I went back up to our minor chord template, dragged over a duplicate, because remember, this is our template, so we can get rid of that. We can keep our template, the thing that we never really, actually alter. We just move this over and then alter the duplicate over here. And I just took the one chord, which is E minor, put it on its own MIDI clip. So as we've always done, click drag, Control Shift M, there's your MIDI clip, and you can either draw in an E minor chord right there based on what you saw here for your one chord, E, G, B. So you can either draw it in, or you can go over to your duplicated version of your template and essentially do a few things. You could take all your other notes and delete them. Now you have your E minor chord, and you can basically, whoops, you don't want to change the notes, but you can drag them around on your timeline anywhere you think the placement is appropriate for it. And where is placement appropriate? Depends on what you're going for. You could put it on the one, like kind of the brassy stab hits that happen in EDM on the one, like a big send off from 1 into 2, 3, 4 of the bar. You could do it on the upbeat, sort of like the hi-hats, which is what I did here. I think it's a little bit, might be right on the upbeat actually. You can experiment where you have space and time in between your bass line and put the chord where your bass line is not. Depending on the pattern you go with your bass line, you could have the chords play with your bass line. Since I'm kind of feeling a funky techie kind of thing, at least for now, I went with the chord being just a quick stab on the upbeat. And I think I just went with something kind of mundane and tolerable. It looks like I went with tines, under guitar and plucked for now. Keep in mind, guys, you're gonna change these sounds out. And that kind of leads me into my next kind of topic on chords, because I think at least it especially gets real with chords. There's a few things you can do. Number one, if you're using Ableton, you can go to their official website and download a bunch of presets for the stock synthesizer, soft synths within Ableton. I'm sure you can do that for the other DAWs that are out there. I'm sure you can. If you can't, there's a few different options. There's websites out there like Splice, LoopCloud, which is my personal favorite at the moment. You can go to Plugin Boutique. You can also just go to manufacturers' websites like Nexus is a very popular kind of sample-based synth, or I guess sampler. The cool thing about Nexus is there's really very little, if any at all, sound design skill needed. You go to their website, you download the synth, and I think for like $200, maybe a little over that, $250, you get the synth and you get a ton of sounds ready to go. And the sounds are basically sampled, so when you need strings, you have strings that sound like strings. They sound like a violin, they sound like a viola. When you need a bass, There's just about every kind of simple basic wavetable bass, like a square, a saw, a triangle, a sine, that you could need, and or there's ones that are more appropriate for progressive, for trance, for tech house, for hip hop, and then you can take it a step further and buy packs for Nexus. Basically, at least right now, they're just shy of $100, but you can choose the genre that you're looking for. In this case, it might be something like house, commercial house, tech house, maybe even techno. You buy the pack. Um, there's a way to do it. They walk you through it on the website, but it syncs up with your Nexus synth or sampler, if you will. And then you have basically pretty worthy, pretty darn good um, typical sounds for that genre plugged in and ready to go. So there's a bass folder, there's a lead folder, there's a whatever else folder, and you're pretty much good to go with that. So keep in mind that we'll swap these sounds out eventually, and I probably will be using Nexus for that, just because this is about getting something done in 30 days. It's the not overthinking course, the power production course. So we're not really going to get deep into sound design because the overall goal here really is not to teach you to be a sound designer, it's to teach you to produce. And it's very easy to get caught in the potholes, if you will, of designing your own kick or designing your own bass line. It's not that there's not any value to that, there is, but don't lose sight of the bigger picture here of just getting sounds in and completing the actual track, and not, as I've been referencing throughout this course, of just endlessly tweaking a synthesizer to get the perfect lead synth for your track, which, once again, you have to consider the listener. The more time and work you spend on a track, you really kind of want to start to think about that and be careful, because is the listener really truly going to appreciate what you're doing? If they are, by all means continue on, but at least in this course the goal is to complete the track. So do something that's quick, that sounds good, and that works. So keep that in mind when you hear this tines. If you're not real impressed by it, it's okay. We're going to switch that out anyways. The goal here is just note placement. So that's what I did for now. More than likely, with the Heart Hands record sound that I'm going for, at least right now, I'm probably not going to use chords. I just don't think that a plucky bass line with chords and then vocals and then more than likely my signature steel drum kind of sound, I think it's going to be too much. I think it's better just to let it breathe, let it be grooving and funky with a bass line and some steel drums and probably some vocals, and we'll probably call it a day with that for the most part. So I just at least wanted to show you this and explain it to you, and kind of give you some ideas on where to get better sounds. So there we go, guys. I'll see you in the next video.